I sent her to summer camp the next summer. And lo and behold, the girl that comes back is my wonderful, sweet 11-year-old. Her personality is back. And then she gets back on her phone and she becomes surly again. So summer camps are the most powerful technique known for a detox because the kid isn't being deprived. They are in a bunk with other kids with no phones. And they're joking and talking and laughing and fighting and doing all those healthy things. So summer camp is amazing. The other thing that the evidence shows is that team sports and religion, those two things are very, very protective. So I would strongly urge people to encourage their kids to play team sports. My kids run track, which is great, but team sports force more cooperation. So there's some evidence that team sports are even better for their mental health than individual sports. You don't want super duper over supervised, high pressure sports leagues. I mean, that's better than nothing. But ideally, the more they play games that are, more intramural, informal, the kids are enforcing the rules, all of that would be better. Our kids are not rooted in communities anymore, but sports and religion are two things that do that.
What about music? I did an episode on music in the brain, and one of the more thrilling and interesting parts to me was, and I have no musical talent whatsoever, singing or instrumental or otherwise. I love listening to music, however, was that kids that grow up playing an instrument, especially cooperatively with other people in a band, a duet or, a quartet, or, a band or orchestra or marching band, there's some very impressive data in terms of potential for additional neuroplasticity.
Absolutely.
In fact, the brain-wide networks, the sort of patterns of connectivity are much more broad in kids that learned an instrument and played it cooperatively than those that try and learn an instrument later in life, although there's still advantages to that. So I wonder if could be added to the list.
Yes. Playing in a band or singing in a choir, I think definitely should be. For a while, I was really interested in synchrony, and synchrony has all these really powerful effects. There's a wonderful book called Keeping Together in Time by William McNeill. He signed up or he was drafted into World War II, training at a camp in Texas. They're marching up and down with wooden guns because they don't have real guns. And at first it seemed stupid to him, but after a few days, his unit gets it. And when they're like a unit. They're like a centipede. They're in perfect, and it was like a loss of self. It was ecstatic. And so he goes off to World War II. He comes back and writes about, men in battle. He writes, that's a different book title. But those sorts of being in sync, those experiences, we are an ultra-social species. We're much more social than dogs or chimpanzees. We have this ability to keep together in time and do things synchronously. And all around the world, that's what rituals used to do. It's thrilling. And so these self-transcendent experiences that you get from singing in a choir, from playing in a band. I don't have much talent either, but I did play in an informal rock band when I was at UVA. We called ourselves Pavlov's Dogs. We were all in the psych department. But the first time we got it, and we were all really in sync, it was totally thrilling. The more you give your kids, I have a whole section actually in chapter 2 of the book on synchrony and attunement. We need to be in sync, and that's why face-to-face interaction is so important. Whereas when you're communicating on Instagram or any social media, it's asynchronous. You don't have the automatic attunement.
Can I get a little new agey speculative?
All right, let's go.
I have a question. So I've heard you and others say that, kids and probably adults nowadays are not familiar with what it is to be bored. There's always an input. Movie, on social media, YouTube, there's always words streaming at us in audio or written. There's this concept that I love from the world of mindfulness, which used to be considered new agey, but now I think every academic campus has at least a few grants focused on meditation and its benefits and respiration breathwork and its benefits. So we've come a long way. But there's this concept of wordlessness, of the importance of being in states of wordlessness where we're not reading, we're not thinking in complete sentences, we're not taking in sensory information. And we, under those conditions, are able to actually register how we feel about things. So we become better tuned to sense our environment and input when it comes. And I wonder, because my experience of social media has been whether or not kids are on Instagram, Snapchat, et cetera, and they're doing it out of whatever compulsion, habit, addiction, whatever you want to call it. But I'm not sure it feels good to them. I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure it's like the ice cream that tastes delicious. I think it might start that way. And occasionally, they're jackpots, right? But that in large part adults, but since we're talking about kids, let's talk about kids in this very critical, sensitive period of life are not feeling good, and they might not even know they're not feeling good. They're just compulsively, and there I'm using the term loosely, not clinically, compulsively engaging. And so I wonder whether or not there's some benefit to kids not just being bored for experiencing boredom's sake, but learning to actually be a better sensor of what they like and don't like. Because when I talk to my niece or I talk to other young people now, they seem to be like becoming increasingly aware of how much some of the online stuff sucks. That's the language. They're not like, oh, it's awesome, don't take it away from me. They're like, I don't want to miss out, but it's also painful to them. It's like they're drinking from a fire hose of nails. And then every once in a while, there's something that tastes good. It's not like they're like, this is so cool and that's so cool. But of course, if you give them a really cool video of a animal thing or a social dynamics thing or a war game or whatever, they'll get excited. But I don't get the impression that they're like, this is awesome. It's more like, this has me by the short hairs. It's got me scruffed and I'm just doing it and I don't know how to stop.
I think that's
certainly
right.
the way,
Yeah.
certainly the way that boys reach out, young guys typically reach out about their porn addictions. I hear about this thousands of messages. Help me get over this. So I referred them to our episode on addiction by Dr. Anna Lemke from Stanford.
Oh, I love her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Oh yeah, listen to that episode.
Yeah,
Great.
she's spectacular. Or it's just that they're desperate. They're desperate. So I don't see it as all pleasure. I see it as mostly
that's right.
pain.
That's right. So there's a lot going on here. For some of them, they are addicted and they feel bad for the reasons you were talking about, dopamine overshoot, or they feel bad when they're not doing the addictive activity. So they are compulsively using it. Just like a gambler, if you're addicted to slot machines, your life sucks. You've spent all your family's money. You're ashamed of what happened. You feel terrible. Oh, but if I just get back into the zone on the slot machine, I feel good for that 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, that's the most dangerous addiction because as it's been described to me, I'm fortunately not a gambling addict, the gambler really does believe that the next one could change everything.
Right. It's gonna cause motivated reasoning. It's gonna cause hopefulness that is dashed. So for some of them, it is a kind of self-medication. As soon as the boys move their social lives onto video games and porn, and the girls move their social lives onto social media, both sexes got really lonely. They're getting lots of cheap and easy stimulation, but it's not satisfying. So what do they do now that they're lonely and anxious? Well, sometimes they do more of it. So some of it is driven by that feedback cycle, that they're now uncomfortable, so they need more of it. But the other part is the compulsion to consume because everyone else is and they have to keep up. And so my students at NYU, I asked them, some of you are spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day on social media. Why don't you quit? I can't because, I have to know what everyone's talking about. I have to see the latest video. I have to keep up with it. And since, I can't deal with my email and my text, like those two combined, that's more than I can handle in a day. I can't stand it. I can't imagine having 5 platforms in addition. And I don't know the exact number, but very few of my students are on a single platform. Most of them are on 2 or 3 regularly, plus email and texting and Snapchat. So it is kind of like imagine, food is great, but imagine always having to eat. You have to always be eating. Like our system can't handle that. Imagine a plant always in a shower. Like it's always no. You need times of taking in and times of digesting or processing. One of the most valuable, I'll tell you 2 of the most valuable exercises that we do in my flourishing class at NYU. The first is a prerequisite to everything else is they have to regain control of their attention. And once they understand that they've given away almost all of their attention, any moment that isn't taken up by a teacher or something, it's the phone for a lot of them because there's so much to process. They have so many direct messages, so many group texts. They have to always be processing, or they feel like they're being left behind. They're not participating. So I make them see you've got to regain control of your attention. You've got to shut off almost all notifications. You leave on Uber because you want Uber to interrupt you to say the car is 3 minutes away. That's good. But how many other companies is it that important that they interrupt you? Very, very few. So shut off almost all your notifications. Get social media off your phone. If you need to use it, you can use it on your computer, but don't always have it. So that at NYU, in any elevator, as soon as students get on the elevator, the phone comes out because that's like 30 seconds and it's awkward. Take the phone out, scroll.
I would argue the professors too.
Yeah, that's true. We do.
No,
do
not
it too.
you. I'm not.
Yeah. But less so.
Spend time with you in an elevator yet. But
no, we do. But it's less.
Is that right?
So, yeah. And then the other one that I did is really memorable, and I talk about this in the book, is an awe walk. And I got this idea. My friend Dacher Keltner, he and I did research on awe long ago, and he really continued it. He wrote this amazing book called Awe. And there was a great episode. If you just Google Keltner and Tippett, so with Krista Tippett, he did this great discussion. He talks about how he used awe walks to help him process his brother's early death from cancer. And just walking in a beautiful environment, walk a little more slowly than usual. Don't have anything in your ears. Don't be listening to music. Don't even bring your phone, and just notice. And it's magical. It's amazing what happens when you do that. And for a lot of my students, they've never done that because they have to take in so much stuff. If I'm going from point A to point B, of course I'm going to be listening to a podcast or scrolling on my phone while I'm walking. And a lot of them, they really had these transformative experiences. We're right on Washington Square Park at NYU. We're built around Washington Square Park, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous park. It's really one of the most beautiful in America, certainly one of the most beautiful urban parks, I'd say. And the students who did their all walk through the park, a lot of them had these just amazing experiences. It's almost like their heart is opening. They feel more love for people. Their anxiety goes down. And so ever since so I did that myself. When I signed it, I did it too. And I had that sort of experience. So now, I love my AirPods. They're amazingly convenient, but I listen to them a lot less now. Like when I'm walking in New York City, I often just nothing, just look, process, think. So yes, I think young people are taking in way too much stuff. Total quantity of bytes is just, 10 times what it should be. And they don't have time to process. They don't have time to develop an interior life, to think things through. So we just got to cut it way back.